Hey guys, this is Callum from English Shooting and welcome back to the channel. A topic that many of you would have thought was long in the past has recently come back into light due to the total compensation figures for the original offensive weapons bill being released. Now, these aren't the individual compensation figures we've discussed previously. These are the totals, the total amount spent in having all of these firearms and offensive weapons surrendered. And I thought it would be incredibly interesting to look at the numbers in more detail and also compare it to the numbers and figures predicted in the impact assessment for the original consultation. As a little bit of a recap, the offensive weapons bill focused on knives, acid and also firearms. It quite famously led to the term zombie knife. We're still not entirely sure what a zombie knife is, although it has been stated any knife with any mentions of zombies. So please keep your Sharpies away from your kitchen knives and don't even start to think of writing the word zombie on any knife you may own, because it will make it instantly a prohibited offensive weapons. But what we're more interested in are the firearms. It led to the banning of the very innovative Mars and lever release rifles. These had very clever mechanisms in them which made them a lot easier to shoot for disabled shooters. Operating a bolt action rifle with certain disabilities can be quite painful and also prohibitive. So the Mars and lever release were a lot easier to shoot, allowing disabled shooters to still enjoy the sport. Of course, we're not allowed semi-automatic rifles here, so that wasn't an option. And now, unfortunately, the Mars and lever releases are no longer an option to disabled shooters. So it ended up ridding us of these firearms, which I may remind you had never been used in crime, and there was no evidence to suggest that they were even appealing to criminals. If you break it down, is a criminal going to choose to break into somebody's house, navigate their CCTV, navigate their alarm systems, break into a police-approved safe to make off with what, a butchered semi-automatic rifle? No, they're going to go down the pub, they're going to talk to Shady Bob in the corner and get themselves a nice 9mm pistol, maybe a full auto Uzi, or even a Scorpion, all of which we know are coming in huge amounts into the UK every single day. But despite all of this, they were successful in banning them because the rate of fire was not to the liking of NABIS, the police, and also the government. Quoting the original impact assessment, it stated the only other cost is to the government, as there will be a need to compensate private gun owners who surrender their firearms. It is expected to cost between £1 and £1.1 million in the first year of the policy. So that's what they predicted from the impact assessment. This is what was put in front of all of the MPs and everyone involved in the consultation, and not forgetting the greater public. This is what people used to make their decision on whether to support the consultation or not. So how close were they? Well, looking at the figures released, they were nowhere near. The total amount for lever release rifles alone was nearly £2.8 million. Mars rifles was over £250,000, and the ancillary equipment alone is around £780,000, making for a total of £3.8 million. Nearly 4 times over what they were predicting. They stated that there were only around 400 of these types of rifles. There were only 133 surrendered. All of these predictions and estimates were wildly off. Now, not forgetting that when you buy a firearm on a Section 1 license, on a firearm certificate here in the UK, you have to notify your police force of the make, the model, and the caliber along with the serial number of the gun. You would have thought they could have easily looked at how many guns were sort of submitted as being purchased and easily done the maths. They knew what they were going to pay for each gun, and in theory they should know exactly how many guns there were. This seems to suggest they didn't have a clue, and this is also supported by a letter that went round to every firearm certificate holder in Hampshire asking that if they did have a muzzle lever release, they would need to surrender it before the outright ban date. Well, to send that to every firearm certificate holder again goes to suggest that Hampshire did not know who had what guns and where these guns were. This is incredibly worrying. I myself praise the certificate system. It's a great way to ensure that criminals don't get hold of lawfully owned guns, and it does present some sort of barrier to people that you don't want getting hold of these guns. If the police have no idea where these guns are and who owns them, it sort of completely undermines the entire system. Now, 3.8 million, that is a huge amount of money. Trying to take away guns, or successfully taking away guns that had never been used in crime, you really do have to ask whether this money would have been better spent elsewhere. Now, whilst I'm not necessarily the biggest supporter of NABIS, that's the National Ballistics Intelligence Service, they were actually a major key player in trying to get these guns banned and also trying to get 50 cal banned, and they quite famously stated that 50 caliber rifles had an effective range of over 6 kilometers. You would think, as these are the leading experts in firearms forensics, they would know the actual effective range of a 50 BMG. Taking the part that NABIS plays in being the political mouthpiece for the police in banning firearms away for a second, they do a lot of good. They are responsible for linking all of the firearms in crime. It's where all of the ammunition or firearms will be sent to for forensic analysis, and they provide valuable evidence to the prosecutors in convicting criminals during their cases. Their annual budget in 2019 was £2.5 million. The amount spent on confiscating the Mars lever release and ancillary equipment, 3.8, nearly double that of the budget of NABIS. And with NABIS being so effective and so good at providing this evidence and being an incredible asset and tool in the police tool chest, you would have thought that putting £3.8 million towards their annual budget would gain a much bigger result in certainly solving crime and potentially even preventing crime. If they understand crime better and the way that guns are used, they're going to be able to make laws from fact rather than going after guns that there has been no evidence to suggest that they would ever be used in crime. Overall, we know this was a complete waste of money. In terms of the knife attacks, well, they are still gaining momentum across the country every single day. The fact that criminals are not lawfully allowed to possess a knife with the word zombie across it isn't going to make the slightest bit of difference when they can go and grab a 10-inch kitchen knife from their kitchen drawer. And in terms of removing guns off the street, all this did was remove guns from lawful owners that had ever only used their guns lawfully and again had never used them in crime. 3.8 million could have hired over 100 new police officers. 3.8 million could have been used to prop up the border force in detecting the wave of firearms coming in from Europe every single day. There are potentially millions of different ways this money could have been spent rather than targeting legal gun owners. And the fact that they got it so wrong in the impact assessment, I really hope that next time round somebody brings them up on this, somebody presents this failing and gross underestimate to the government and say, really, can you be trusting these people to be providing you with accurate information when they have got it wrong so many times and wrong by such a margin? I have absolutely no issue with the police targeting gun crime. I have absolutely no issue with our licensing system, but when they don't seem to know where the guns are, when they seem to be spending the money so recklessly on these theoretical projects that aren't going to yield a single thing, you have to be asking, well, who's going to steer them in the right direction? And due to these public consultation, I really think that comes down to us. It's up to us to keep an eye on the consultation, to be telling your MPs what these guys are up to and how badly they're getting it wrong, and hopefully pull things in a more sensible and productive direction. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. I really hope you've enjoyed this video and found it interesting. If you have, please give it a big thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for any future videos and content if you're not already. And as always, guys, I hope to see you soon.